Hello everyone, this is Bbeltdan and welcome back to Blender where I am constructing the Daedalus class ship. If y'all are new to this and this is your first episode that you're watching, when I say constructing, I mean I am not just building the Daedalus class ship in Blender. I'm also going in and doing the complete interior, a deck by deck construction of it. So from here, picking up pretty much where I left off. And before I start working on the inside, I'm going to try to get some good details in on the outside. I did go ahead and apply a subdivision surface modifier on the little spherical hull, and I'm just to see what it kind of looks, see whether if I want to do that. I mean, it does indeed smooth it out, uh, at the, in risk of increasing the poly count. And with me doing deck by deck, it is definitely going to be, this is going to be a high poly model. But I think for the most part, I can go ahead and, you know, go ahead and deal with that, and we'll see what kind of happens. So, but once again, I'm working on the exteriors. I'm going to go ahead and try laying in the windows here. It's important for me to lay down the windows because so I can, when I go inside, I can lay down the decks accordingly. So let's go ahead and move right along. So I'm putting in these little, I don't know what you might want to probably call them. For me, it seems like that these bands are for structural purposes, like you see in some steampunk designs. Usually, like when there's, or even, old-timey locomotives around parts where there was a lot of pressure, there were beams usually on the outside of the structure, and that was, oh, that's right. Um, and that was primarily, once again, used to just, you know, contain the pressure internally. Now, we're not having pressure internally. Actually, you probably would, because you'd have internal pressure inside on the outside of a vacuum. So, pressure on the inside, pressure on the outside, air trying to escape out. So, yeah, that's kind of what I see these for. And that's the only reason why I see these for. This being an older vessel, they just, um, now, they would have external struts, and maybe because this section, and the reason why they have it here, because this section here, it might be thinner metal to leave more room so people can walk, so they put it here. They might have some thicker metal here, it's thicker metal, but here it might be slightly thinner metal, so that's probably why they do it. There may be another reason, but that's why I'm going to go ahead and kind of use that for. So inside these little structures, there's not going to be any kind of mechanicals in it. But let's go ahead and do this. Before I can do this, I got to apply the subdivision surface modifier, because if I just scale this out, do an extrude and scale out, it's going to get a little bit, it's not going to scale properly. So let's go ahead, go into object mode and temporarily apply this modifier. And now I can go ahead and extrude and scale out. Now, I'm sure there's a way to probably do it. In fact, I think I might have asked this on a different episode, but if I want to scale along two axis but not in the third axis, what do I do? Is it like X, Y? No, scale. Okay, now I remember. And once again, if somebody did point this out to me in another episode and I forgot, I apologize. But if I want to scale it along two axes and not another, then I lock it on an axis. So from here, let's see, extrude, then scale, and then shift and press whatever axis I want to lock it. So you can see at the bottom right there, it says locking global Z. And it's scaling everywhere else but that Z-axis. But really what I need to be doing is scale, scale, shift, Y. There you go. Now it scales every other direction except along this y-axis. So that's how you do that. So we're going to go ahead and do that on the others. Extrude, scale, shift, Y, and actually let me do this as well so I get this uniformed. Scale, shift, Y, and let's see, that looks like that's at about scale 1.1. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and scale all of these. Scale, oops, I forgot to extrude, scale, shift Y, 1.1. That way it's a extrude, scale, shift Y, then 1.1. That way it's every single one of these is going to be uniform because we want it to be uniformed. So scale, oops, scale, shift, Y, learn new things every single day. And finally on this last one here, extrude, scale, shift, Y, 1.1. There we go. And let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now see, now we smoothed it out, but it looks kind of funky because we need to go ahead and tell it to do an auto smooth, and we'll go ahead and leave it at to where it straightens out angles at 30 degrees. And there we go. Voila. So now I just need to do the same thing to the nacelles here, and so once again, there's nothing on the engineering section. Nope. So let me go ahead and do this real quick. Rinse and repeat on these, on the nacelles here real quick, and then I will be right back. Okay, wanted to cut back in because I also went ahead and remembered, or not remembered, but this. Okay, back again. I wanted to cut back in because to show you all a little bit of a shortcut that you can now use utilizing that method I showed you if you need to scale a whole bunch of things like this. But in order to get it to work, you're going to have to go into face select, and I think, yeah, it can work on edge select as well. So either edge select or face select, because you can't do this necessarily in vertices, because if you select vertices, if I want to select this and select this, it's going to extrude and scale these faces as well. But if you go into edge or face, let's go ahead and do edge, and then if I select all of these here that I've want to go ahead and expand, now I press extrude, it's only going to extrude just those edges. And now if I go ahead and scale, shift Y, because I don't want anything to scale along the y-axis, then 1.1. There we go. Now it goes ahead and it scales all of them at once. So it makes it a little bit quicker. So I just wanted to go ahead and show you all that little bit of a trick in case y'all didn't know about it. So it's a lot faster than me doing one at a time. Just select them all, scale them all. So just wanted to show you that little trick. So let me go ahead and do some more work and I'll be right back. And everybody, I am now at a point where I think that I got enough of the external details laid out or plotted out, such as the windows and these braces or strips or what have you, and also a couple of these little cutouts here that may be important to the design and structure of the ship, all plotted out to where now I think we could go ahead and start working on the interiors. I mean, I don't have every little detail quite modeled out yet, but mostly the major ones, kind of the high points, you might probably say. And I do know that as I go through and start working on the interiors, there's going to be some additional external details that I might put in that's not visible on the model, or that I know is visible on the model, such as airlocks, external airlocks, uh, Impulse engines, don't know where that's at. Whether this thing has a deflector dish. I do know there are some fans. No, I do not want to update you. I do know that there are some fan designs where they put a deflector dish down here at the bottom, right here. Um, and there's some speculation that this, of course, is the deflector dish as well, but it's being blocked by this, so it's not very efficient. Whether that be considered a design flaw, or when they designed the ship and then later corrected it, or if that's something else entirely, I don't know. I'm going to decide. I have a couple of ideas of what to do with all of that, but as I said, let's go ahead and start working on the interior. I have went ahead, let me move this a little bit bigger so we could see better. I went ahead and combined these three pieces together, the spherical front section, or the hull, primary hull, this, the neck, and the engineering slash, uh, come on, Daniel, think. Shuttle bay. There we go, shuttle bay. I combined all those together and into one mesh and hollowed it out so you can see it's nice, one nice clean cut all the way through. Do need to do some mesh improvements. Have a couple of little anomalies to take care of, but nothing real major. So before I go in and start actually trying to uh, do a more definitive design of or layout of the ship, we need to go ahead and lay out the deck plan. And now some of that has already been done for us to a certain degree, to where we have these windows here. I mean, obviously, every place there's a window, there should be a deck. I don't have all the windows, as you can see. I got these two here, but I don't have the ones there. But all I needed to do is at least get a couple of the windows on each deck to lay it out. Some of these are very easy, very simple to go by, because like right here, I mean, these is obviously one straight deck that goes all the way across. Here's another straight deck that goes all the way across. So using that as a layout and as a guideline, so to say. Also, with me, said I've already got it set up. As you can see here, each one of these is set to be in meters. You scroll in, it changes into meters. So what that means that each one of these blocks is 10 meters. So this ship here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh, excuse me, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 times 10, so that's 140 meters, and that seems to be a pretty uh, accepted and popular size for how long this ship is. And as we scroll in, we get into meters, so each one of these blocks should be 10 blocks total is 1 meter, and you screw in, or and you scroll in, sorry, and a little bit deeper you get in. Each one of these is 10 centimeters, so on and so forth. So we got the windows, but to continue to help me out with the deck layout, I went ahead and I got one of these little guys right here. This guy, gentleman, right here is a very low poly person that is roughly almost about 6 feet tall, or about, we got 10 centimeters here, or under 2 meters. So it's 1, 2, 3, that's 10, 11, 12. Let's just do it this way. See, that's 185, if I'm getting that right, 185 centimeters, so just under 2 meters. So it's about close to 6 feet. It's low poly. It's not supposed to be an accurate representation, but it's at least a way to kind of help me scale everything accordingly into the inside. A little trick that somebody taught me a while back ago on sci-fi meshes, because when I was doing a bridge design for the Enterprise J, people were telling me that nothing was up to scale, and if I tried to model everything by eye, I'm going to have the scale all wrong. And surely enough, I mean, I had the captain's chair was much too big in relation to the the doors, the doors where they can enter in. I mean, the doors were either the captain's chair was the right size and the doors were too small where people had to duck underneath it, or the captain's chair was way too big to where the captain sits in and it looks like a little child sitting in a chair, and the ops and cons were much too small. They looked like they would be hobbit size, and so getting one of these guys in there really kind of helps you out with scale. So we're doing that to help with the deck layouts. Now, with that, I then went ahead and gave him a bunch of little buddies here, as you can see, and I started trying to move them around and figure out deck layout. I do know that their heads are not lined up with the windows. We'll touch that in just a minute. And I know that they're not equally spaced, but I have a reason for that. But from these guys here, I then went in and started laying out some potential deck patterns. So as of right now, if I was to use this design, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 4, wait, did that wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and possibly 1 to 2 more decks inside the engineering section. So it's about anywhere between 15 to 16 decks, which seems realistic. Now, with spacing here, I could possibly try squeezing some of these people closer together and get an extra deck in, but um, possibly, but it would be very cramped, and I think there'll be some issues with that. So I'm leaving these spaces between some of these decks as is. In fact, there's a possibility I might remove like this deck here and, uh, well, no, I'll keep that deck there. But, different decks are going to be of different heights because of possible rooms or equipment, or, uh, that's going to be, that needs to be held on that deck. Such as, let's say, I mean, like one of these decks, let's pick this one right here, or this one right here, we'll have like stellar cartography. Well, we might need a pretty decent size room for that, so you might need larger decks. Wherever the computer core is at, that might need a larger deck. I don't think the computer core in this type of ship is going to be as large as we see the computer core, let's say on the Enterprise D, but it would still be pretty sized to where it take up a pretty good room, torpedo rooms, and sensors and all that type of stuff. So each deck's going to be just slightly different. But even the decks though that are of equal height, such as this deck and these two decks, there's not a lot of space between the person and the head. And I did that on purpose because as old as this model is, I'm trying to kind of go back to references to how cramped it is within submarines. I mean, if you ever been inside a submarine, it gets pretty cramped in there. There's not a lot of space because they can only build a submarine. Well, I guess there's a reason about why they only build a submarine, so big, and not you know these huge old aircraft carrier sized submarines. I'm sure there's a reason. I don't know what that is, but they're cramped in there. So this would be very, you know, um, I mean, this is going to be very crude, very old style. I mean, a lot of the pipes and stuff are going to be seen and things. Another reason about why some of these decks are um, a little bit taller than others, because you might have a lot more, like here there might not be a lot of piping running through, but here there'd be a lot of piping running through, or conduits and stuff along the ceilings or what have you. So yeah. Now, I know there's a couple of little issues with this. For one, the windows are not quite up to, they're not aligned with the people. Their heads are here, so if they want to look out the window, they'd have to peek down and look. But if I'm not mistaken, I think that ships with portholes tend to be almost the same way. The portholes are more chest level, so I think that's still okay. But uh, I know it'd probably be more aesthetic pleasing for the crew and for the design if the windows were in line with the head. But by doing it this way, it it just made sense. It To me it just made sense, especially when we have a problem with this window here, which you'll see in just a minute. These windows are lined up with his shoulders, just like you see everybody else, but this window here is lined up almost with the person's head, because these windows here are not as equally spaced as these sets of windows here for whatever reason. Could be just a flaw in the way that they drew it. Um, Now, what's on each deck, I really don't know. This deck is really not a deck, but I'm thinking like this would be kind of an early Jeffries tube where somebody can crawl through here but not walk through here, because we still got the thickness of the hull to add in. So there's not really room here for that person to, walk. So in this neck, there's going to be two decks regardless, 2.5 decks. Because even if I move this guy down, which we'll see later, it's still definitely not going to give this guy enough room. And I haven't laid out a lot of the decks back in here. Oh, and also plus we got this little guy right here. If this is indeed the shuttle bay, I'm either going to have to make this bigger, or they had some very, very small shuttlecraft. It might not even really be shuttlecraft. It may have been just like little, pods or something, 1 or 2 man pods or something that was very, very small to go through there. Debating on what I want to do here. Make this bigger, or give them to where they have small shuttlecrafts and pods instead of much larger ones. Um, but the bridge here is an interesting note, which I'm debating what I want to do, and I have two plans for it. This right here, if I stick with the original rules that Gene Roddenberry set out, the official, unofficial rules of starship design, the bridge is visible and always at the top. I think you want it because that way, so everybody knows, well, where's the bridge? Boom, there's the bridge right there. So, if a torpedo is being launched and it's getting closer towards that bridge area, everybody starts, you get a little more tense because, wait a minute, that's where the captain's at. And, majority of the crew that we end up all learning to know and love is right there. So it builds suspense. I'm guessing that's why he did it. I really don't know. But if this right here, hold up. Okay, so this little area right here, if this is indeed the bridge, then, well, it's not a very big bridge. You can see about how one person looks inside there. If we have two other people, for ops and con, and more people back here for different stations, this bridge is going to get very, very crowded, and rightfully it may very well be crowded. Plus also it has windows, and I know with the J.J. Abrams verse, the and I think in Discovery we're seeing that as well. I haven't watched the Star Trek Discovery yet. I really need to, but I haven't got around to it. But I think that they started putting windows in those ships as well. And some people like it, some people don't. It's not really akin to what the original series and Roddenberry had in mind. But if but this Daedalus class, if this is indeed the bridge, shows that there was indeed windows in at least earlier versions of the starships. Maybe they didn't have view screens and they had to use windows. Maybe they kept windows in as kind of a way to, so if they lose a view screen or power, they can at least see what's going on. Um, so if this is just the bridge, I mean, I can go a little bit deeper down to probably give them more headspace, but not much space, along the X and Y axis. It's going to be a small bridge. Yeah, see, you can see right there, it's going to be a small bridge, slightly smaller than what the Enterprise, or much smaller than what the Enterprise bridge, especially when you put in equipment and everything in and try to accommodate that. So I could go down a little bit deeper. But then that leads me to my second idea, is that what if this is not the bridge and the bridge is actually submerged, and this here is actually kind of an observation point. So if the bridge is down here, we can make it definitely a lot bigger because then we have all of this space here. And imagine if there were stairs walking up here, so you can have people that are around here, maybe with a couple of stations doing some, work. And I got a kind of a design already planned out. And and by doing that, I started deciding, well, let me go ahead and try a different approach with this. Let me go ahead and line up all these people to where their heads are in line with the windows and redo the deck heights, which led me to this design. Not that much different as you could probably see, but the big difference is that everybody's or almost everybody's head is in line with a window. It still kind of works. I think it's the same amount of deck spaces available, but as you can see here, this guy's going through the hall, so this space right here would have to be a crawl only space. Um, Not much has changed. I had to do a little bit of stair stepping here for some reason. I guess maybe these windows and these windows were not exactly in line. No, I don't think they are. I don't think they're exactly in line. So I had to do a little bit of stair stepping to keep these people's heads window height. The only problem with this is this window right here. As you can see, it's jutted up right up against that, and it is, this person had to stand on his tippy toes to really get a good look outside of that window. That's the only problem I have about it. Now I can lower that window down a little bit, and that would be sufficient. I mean, it won't look, exactly like the photo, but how close do I want it to look like the photo? But interesting part to note is here is once again my idea of the bridge. Probably should have made this a little bit smaller, but just imagine, if you will, if this was a platform that went around here so people can walk around here to take, visual observations of what's going on, or if there's an emergency and the view screen goes out, the captain could send some people up here to take a look outside to let them know, hey, we got an enemy ship on this side, enemy ship on that side, and what have you, so they could visually see, where everything is at. And then this entire space here is the bridge, and we can, you know, balloon it out to give us more space, but we have a lot more space. So the bridge is still technically not here, but it is, because this little observation deck is still part of the bridge. So yes, it is on the top. Yes, but no, it's not. Um, Now, this would also make it to where this entire deck is pretty much used, just wasted just for the bridge, and you can have captain's ready room, or temporary quarters for the captain, a meeting room, and everything along inside this deck would be dedicated to the bridge and to the captain and command crew and everything like that. I actually kind of like this, not because it's a bigger bridge, but just because I like the idea of having this observation deck. Just imagine, if you will, if this was like an episode, and you had people above the captain walking around. That'd be a little bit dangerous. If the ship gets hit and somebody falls over, they could potentially land on the captain or on the console or what have you. But still, I kind of like the whole idea of what that bridge would look like with a upper observation deck where people walk around. Think of it like a submarine, which is where I'm trying to base a lot of my um, um, you know a lot of my inspiration from, is to where you have the bridge and then you got that little uh, oh, what piece do you call it? I need to study up on this. uh, you have the cylindrical part, and then you have the little part that sticks up, that what I'm talking about. And then when they above the water, you see them walk up, and then people stand out on top of that, and they can look around with binoculars and everything. Imagine if that's what this is like. Imagine if the early shipbuilders or starship builders used to be submarine builders, so they designed this, you know, akin to submarines. So this was kind of the observation deck that they could put people on temporarily if there ever needed to be a visual observation, or the captain can come up here and kind of look around. I actually kind of like that idea. This deck layout is not too bad. The only thing that I do not like is the stair step to get the where these people are still in line with those windows, and I'd have to change that window there. Oops. But beyond that, that is kind of my idea. So I got those two ideas for the deck layouts. Once I get those done, especially when I've decided on the bridge, I can go ahead and get started on modeling the interiors. And I'm also going to have to also go ahead and add the kind of a thickness to the exterior hull just a little bit, just for spacing purposes. And there is I believe, a modifier that I could use for that purpose. Solidify, I think, is what it is. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Solidify, to where I can give it just, the whole hull, an equal amount of space in between, so. But I'll probably be doing that off screen, so I'll have that on the next episode. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and call this a close and do some work off screen, so I'll have that decision made on which deck pattern I want to use. But let me know what y'all would probably think. I really kind of value y'all's opinion and everything. Think of this project as kind of a a fan collaboration, so to say. Y'all let me know what y'all would probably think. And I'm probably going to go ahead and post this project on a couple of the sci-fi meshes or 3D meshes forums to also get some input there. But yeah, let me know what y'all probably think. But until then, the next episode, I want to say this is Bbeltdan. I want to say thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.